Sup everyone, welcome back to another video. Today, as you guys see, we have Yoimiya on screen. Now we're going to be talking about a couple things, her past and her current present situation, because when Yoimiya first came out, I do think a lot of people were upset or were disappointed at how she performs, the accessibility to different team options that she had, as well as her ceilings. And of course, we're talking at C0 because quite frankly, C6 Yoimiya, in my at least humble opinion, is one of the most busted units in the entire game, because it just pushes one avenue of her kit so far beyond what is currently necessary. I mean, that's the same with all C6, but just even in comparison to other C6 units, Yoimiya C6 tunnels so hard in the thing that she is known for, which is her auto attack. They just tunnel so deep into that to the point where she becomes incredibly proficient at dealing with any levels of threats, to the point where you could quite frankly say she's kind of a different unit. Okay, we're talking about C0, so this is relevant to more people watching the video, both for people who have Yoimiya, people who don't have Yoimiya are potentially thinking about her. I hope this video can help you out. Now, if you do think these videos are helpful, consider subscribing, because I talk about Genshin every day. I'm always trying to find interesting things or ways to kind of get you guys seeing the game in a different perspective, and I'm always up for a challenge, meaning if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comment section below. Okay, so let's talk about Yoimiya. When she first came out, yes, essentially people were like, oh, well, you have to play her with Xingqiu. If you don't play her with Xingqiu, it kind of feels awkward. And what happened afterwards was that Yunjin also came out, and then he's like, okay, you know, Yunjin feels great with Yoimiya, and it's quite the boost, and Yoimiya mains were happy about that. And now fast forward to today, another bit of kind of help was put into the game, and this one is a little more substantial in Yelan. Now, Yelan is important for Yoimiya in that Yoimiya has this thing about her, which I think at this point it's both a pro and a con ever since Yelan came out, and that is her needing to finish her entire auto attack string in order to reap the benefits of its scaling. It's not like every single attack is weighted the same. No, as you get later into her normal attack string, so allow me to demonstrate here. As you get later into her normal attack string, the later shots do end up doing more damage. And why is this a problem? This is a problem because in the game of Genshin Impact, I would say it's a quite fast-paced combat game. And what that means is that things happen incredibly quick, which oftentimes don't allow you the luxury of standing there and finishing everything. That's why animation cancels are so proficient in characters such as Zhao, Hu Tao, Klee, and even Claymore users who have longer animations. People have developed animation cancels or newer animations to kind of shed down on the time needed to be spent in animation dealing damage. Well, you can't really get away with that when it comes to Yoimiya. So since the dawn of her introduction to the game, you've been pairing her with Zhongli if you had Zhongli, and that pretty much hasn't changed. People be like, oh, well, you know, you have Yunjin now, why don't you use Yunjin? Well, here's the thing about Yunjin, right? Yunjin, she excels at buffing normal attacks. However, you know, Crystallize in its current state is not really desirable, especially for complete reliance on defense. I think you could say, okay, Crystallize could benefit you midway through a fight, when, let's say, if you have a C0 Zhongli, not fully well built yet, and your shield feels kind of lackluster, it might crack and break, and you will have to wait 2 seconds before Zhongli's elemental skill comes back. Well, you know, a crystallized shield could be great in that time period, but it's not something you should be having on Yoimiya and relying on its entirety to protect you during her full normal attack sequence, if that makes sense. So you end up having to rely on Zhongli. And for the most part, the team most people used to run was Yoimiya, Xingqiu, Bennett, and then Zhongli. Now, this is a team that's pretty good, and till this day, I think some people might still consider running that if they don't have, let's say, Yelan, they don't have Yunjin built up. It's a fine team, but you see, that just adds a whole new layer of difficulty for Yoimiya to function. So what I mean by that is, when you're playing that team, Yoimiya is a character who wants to create some level of distance. And in fact, if you look at her normal attack string, she creates quite a bit of distance herself. So we can take a look like this. So here's the problem, right? Let's say Bennett, boom, drops a burst, you switch to Yoimiya. Watch what happens as she auto attacks. That's one sequence. So she went from here, one sequence of auto attack later, she went almost 2 blocks backwards, if you guys can see, almost 2, and then you're gonna go again, bam. And at this point, we started like over here, and that's 2, and during a Bennett burst, I'd say you can probably fit like 3, maybe 4 in there. So what ends up happening is you almost definitely have to auto, and then dash forward, and then auto. So what ends up happening is you yourself as a ranged unit forcibly closes the gap between yourself and the enemies. Now, why am I mentioning all this stuff? It's because these are all problems that Yoimiya faces when you want to play her. Like, it doesn't matter if you are a dedicated Yoimiya main or you're just using her because she's, feeling great in the abyss right now. Doesn't matter. This is a problem that when you play Bennett with Yoimiya, you are facing. And that is what this new Yelan, Yunjin, Zhongli team pretty much fixes. And yes, Yoimiya is making a comeback. Well, not a comeback, because she was never back. She's moving up in the ranks. When it comes to her being compared to characters, I think Hu Tao is definitely the go-to. They're both your premier top tier 5-star pyro DPS. Right, let's not talk about Xiangling, because quite frankly, Xiangling has both of these characters beat. That's a conversation for another video. But when compared to Hu Tao in previous patches, I think they were 30% apart when it comes to abyss usage. Sometimes Hu Tao would be hovering close to 70%, but usually Hu Tao is sitting in 65-70%. And Yoimiya was sitting, I remember it was around like 35-40%. And with Yelan now coming out, Yoimiya has shot up comfortably around 10%, maybe 13, to a comfortable 48%, 48.9. And now, as we continue getting into this stuff, where her rerun comes, maybe the abyss is gonna favor her a little bit. You could expect to see them level out at a very similar usage rate, and that is all because of the continued additions Hoyoverse has been putting into the game, supporting the kit of Yoimiya. And if you guys can tell, Yelan came out and people rarely play her with Hu Tao for a multitude of reasons. It's just that Xingqiu is better with Hu Tao and Yelan is better with Yoimiya. It's designed this way and it's meant to be this way. Now, when we actually compare a character like Hu Tao to Yoimiya, why do people still prefer Hu Tao? What is the reason? The reason is less commitment to an attack string, more flexibility in how you deliver your attacks in animation canceling. That is so important when it comes to playing Hu Tao. I'm pretty sure most people who do play Hu Tao or play her, even dabble in Hu Tao, are familiar with her animation cancels and the amount of flexibility it brings into her attacking style. You never have to commit, like, say 3 seconds to one attack. You can always reposition, you can always dodge. In fact, if you have Hu Tao at C1, it gives you the leisure to use a dash cancel more often to dodge out of attacks. Also, Hu Tao has her burst skill, which innately heals her. And if you can see this team with Yoimiya, with Yelan, Yunjin, Zhongli, no healers. But with double Geo and a Zhongli, you don't need any healers unless you run into anti-shielding, which then we have another issue. However, most anti-shielding does not stagger you. So when it comes to Yoimiya, she doesn't really mind it, but yeah, no healers is definitely gonna hurt. However, Hu Tao has that built into her own kit. Well, that just kind of makes her a complete unit. Hu Tao's current best team is Hu Tao, Xingqiu, Albedo, and Zhongli. As you guys see, a very similar style, almost identical, with just a little bit off. And Hu Tao is superior in the way that she can heal herself, quite frankly. Like, that's making a huge difference in this, and that healing allows Hu Tao to be brought into content that they could be anti-shield units or whatever. Hu Tao doesn't really care. She can just use her burst, heal back up, along with Xingqiu's healing. You guys might think of Xingqiu's healing, but it's more substantial than you would think over the course of an entire abyss run. And at the end here, I just want to hammer home reliability, and Hu Tao currently just feels more reliable. However, I do think Yoimiya is making a case for herself, shooting up in the ranks and showing us that, hey, if you build her right, if you commit enough to her and her team, she can be just as potent, if not more so, compared to a Hu Tao, let's say, who is not well optimized, or the person who's playing Hu Tao is not really leveraging all those advantages properly. Okay, with that said, I'm going to close this with the statement: do you need Yoimiya? Should you pull Yoimiya? I do think while Yoimiya is a strong unit, you can definitely do without her. I see that Yunjin as well as Yelan have come out to facilitate her in almost a Yoimiya-centric team, but there's just still too much caveat. I would love to be able to drop Zhongli for another character. If Crystallize were a little better, you can rely on Crystallize. I know Double Geo is a big bonus for Yoimiya as well, but in this case, it's not really leveraging that back to the Geo units so much, when in Hu Tao's case, you have Albedo, which you can use Geo Resonance for both Hu Tao and also Albedo. It just works a little bit better. So if this team could somehow drop Zhongli, bring back Bennett, get that double pyro buff instead of the double Geo, and then having Yunjin with Crystallize somehow able to protect Yoimiya well enough, I can see a case where that's going to be good. Maybe even push Yoimiya into a proper meta. And I think that it's such a pity when you have a reaction like Crystallize where it's built to kind of protect you and give you coverage from stagger, from damage, albeit you do have to refresh quite often. But like I said before, when you're playing with Bennett, you have to dash around anyway to stay in the circle, so you're not really losing out much. Everything works together quite well. So until maybe Crystallize gets fixed and becomes a more reliable defensive tool, I do think Yoimiya will kind of feel stuck in this position where you are forced to stack more damage and you cannot have it any other way. But please let me know what you think. Are you getting Yoimiya? If you already have her, how are you building her? What's your favorite team and what you agree and don't agree with? I'd love to see you guys in my live stream today, where we'll go further into discussion regarding characters, content, as well as just having a good time. All right, until then, urge you all to stay safe and peace.